The Navy SEAL combat instructor looks down at the man eating lunch at table 8 and speaks loud enough for the 4 nearest tables to hear every word. Sir, with respect, movie karate is choreography. It is not the same thing as fighting. With your permission, I would like to show my next class of trainees the difference. Chuck Norris does not look up. He sets the fork down on the tray. He is 45 years old, 5 feet 10, 175 pounds, wearing tan military pants, a plain white T-shirt, and brown leather cowboy boots that look completely out of place on a Navy base. In the next 7 seconds, on a slab of concrete called the grinder, Senior Chief Darrell Brennan is going to learn something that 12 years as a Navy SEAL, hand-to-hand combat instructor never taught him. This is the story the Naval Special Warfare Command archive declassified in 2019, and almost nobody ever asked to see it. Chuck looks up. He turns. He sees Brennan standing behind him, and he reads the man in about half a second. Chuck has seen this look before. It is the look of someone who has decided he is doing the right thing. The look of someone who has been right enough times in his life to believe he is always right. The man standing over him is not a bad man. He is just certain, and being certain is the thing that is about to be corrected. Chuck says, "Senior Chief, can I help you?" Brennan says, "You can answer one question, sir. In Missing in Action, the prison camp scene, you take down 4 guards with a spinning back kick combination, 3 seconds, 4 men. Sir, do you really believe that is what would happen in a real fight against 4 trained enemies?" The galley goes quiet. The 8 tables closest to table 8 stop completely. Trainees in green pants and faded shirts, still soaking wet from the morning swim, stop chewing. They turn their heads just enough to watch without being seen watching. Chuck says, "Senior Chief, that was a movie. I had 11 stuntmen, 2 takes, and a fight choreographer. No, that is not what happens in a real fight." Brennan says, "Then with respect, sir, what does happen?" Brennan does not raise his voice. He uses the voice he was trained to project across the grinder during beach runs, measured and dry and clear at 50 feet. "Sir, what I teach here is what works when there is no director, no choreographer, and no medic standing by. 3 minutes, light contact. Any technique. Right here on the grinder. Right now." Chuck does not answer right away. He is 45 years old. He has a film called Invasion USA, still in post-production. He has not sparred at full speed in 18 months. The smart move, the move every adult in the room would tell him to make, is to laugh, say no, and ask the senior chief to sit down. There is no version of this where he wins anything. If he loses, he is the movie star a SEAL put on the ground. If he wins, he is the movie star who hurt a SEAL in front of his own men. There is no upside, but Brennan has said it in front of 41 operators, 2 of them officers, and Chuck has lived long enough in this world to recognize when something has shifted. He says quietly, "All right, Senior Chief," outside. Darrell Brennan is 33 years old, 6 feet 2, 215 pounds. SEAL Team 3, 12 years in the Navy, 8 years as a SEAL, 2 cycles as a hand-to-hand combat instructor, 2 tours in Vietnam in 1972 and 1973, the final classes out. Combat tested. 2 bronze stars he does not wear and does not mention. Brennan thinks he is being responsible. For the past 6 weeks he has been thinking hard about the lesson he wants to drill into his next class of trainees. The difference between what works in a movie and what works in a real fight against a man who has decided to kill you. He has been thinking about it because he watched two of his former students come home from deployment in the last year and a half with the kind of quietness that combat brings back with it. He has decided that if one of his men ever dies because he learned the wrong reflex from a Chuck Norris movie, the responsibility is on him. So when Chuck Norris walks into his galley wearing cowboy boots, Brennan sees a teaching opportunity. In his mind, he is doing the SEALs a favor. His skill is real. That is the part that is going to make the next 4 minutes so hard for him. His skill is not the thing about to be corrected. His certainty is. Chuck picks up his tray. He walks it over to the dish line. He stacks it carefully, plate on top of the tray, cup inside the plate, silverware crossed neatly on the rim. He looks at Brennan and nods. If you want to find out what happened next, make sure you are subscribed and comment below where you are watching from. The walk takes 90 seconds out the galley side doors, across the asphalt service road, past the Bud/SC barracks, onto the grinder. And the grinder is 60 feet by 90 feet of flat concrete, painted with the SEAL trident at center, surrounded by chain link on 3 sides and a low concrete wall on the 4th. And the concrete has been hosed down after the morning swim block and is steaming in the October sun. And the surface temperature is 103 degrees, and 26 men follow them out. 11 off-duty operators from Team 3, 8 BUD/S instructors, 7 Class 144 trainees still wet from a swim block, and Captain Larry Bailey, the BUD/S commanding officer, sees the procession through his office window and walks out of the building behind them. He does not stop it. He stands at the chain link. He has been in the Navy for 26 years, and he reads the situation in 3 seconds, which is that Brennan has done something operational and unrecoverable, and the only useful thing now is to watch it happen. And Brennan strips off his utility blouse and folds it on the low wall. Underneath is a brown T-shirt, cabled forearms, the build of a man who does pull-ups for breakfast. Chuck does not strip down. He keeps the white T-shirt on. He removes the cowboy boots and sets them next to the low wall, laces tucked inside, the same way he set them down at the Sportatorium in December of 1967 and at the Long Beach Arena in August of 1968. He rolls up the cuffs of the BDU pants to mid-calf. He stands up on the concrete in bare feet, and the concrete is hot, the kind of hot that registers in the soles of the feet as data before it registers as pain, and he does not show it, because the pain is data, and a man who has been on hot concrete in his life knows that the data resolves in 90 seconds if you do not waste energy fighting it. And Brennan says, "Rules, sir, 3 minutes, light contact, any technique, tap or verbal, stop, ends it." Captain Bailey calls it, and Chuck says, "Agreed," and Bailey from the fence says, "Begin." Second one. Brennan opens with a closing low-line front kick, what is known in some traditions as a teep, a knee-level front thrust kick designed not to land but to crash the distance, because SEAL close quarters combat opens with range closing. You do not stand at distance against a man you cannot read. You get inside, you make the fight ugly, you finish it before the trained reflex can find its rhythm, and Chuck does not back up, which the men at the fence register immediately, because backing up is what a man who does not know what he is doing does in second 1 of a fight against a SEAL. Second 2, Chuck switch stance pivots 8 inches off the center line, the same pivot he has thrown 10,000 times in the garage in Tarzana, the garage where he keeps a heavy bag and 2 pieces of Korean makiwara board mounted on a 4x4 post, and the kick passes, and Brennan is now inside Chuck's range, which is where Brennan wants to be, which is where Brennan has trained 8 years to be. And Brennan throws a tight, short elbow at the jaw, the SEAL close quarters combat standard close range strike, the one taught in the BUD/S syllabus on day 1 of week 3. Second 3. Chuck blocks the elbow with the bone of his left forearm, not soft tissue, bone on bone, and Brennan feels it in the ulnar nerve, the specific cold electric shock that runs from elbow to little finger when an unconditioned forearm meets a conditioned one. And here is what is happening that Brennan cannot yet name. For 14 years, Chuck has been striking a hardwood makiwara board 6 days a week, 200 reps per arm per day, which has given his forearms a density profile Brennan has never felt before, the specific density of bone that has been remodeled by controlled microfracture over a decade and a half. And Brennan does not register the data because SEAL training tells him to combo through contact, so he throws the right cross. Second 4, the right cross passes Chuck's left ear by 1.5 inches. Chuck has pivoted again, and the grinder is now silent except for the ambient industrial noise of the base. A forklift moving cargo at the small boats facility 400 yards south, and a silent SEAL grinder during a fight is a thing that does not happen, which is the specific quality of detail that the 26 men at the fence will remember decades later when they tell the story, because SEALs heckle, they trash talk, they call the fight as it happens. They are not doing that now. What they are doing instead is filing what they are watching for later retrieval. Second 5, Brennan resets. 3 techniques thrown, 0 contact made. And 26 men have watched him not make contact, which is its own report, which will move through the Team 3 barracks tonight in a way Brennan can already feel coming. So he commits to the takedown, the double leg shoot SEAL combatives teaches as the high percentage close, because at this point the alternative is to keep missing, and missing in front of his men is worse than going to the ground. Second 6, Chuck sprawls, hips back, weight forward, arms underhooking Brennan's shoulders. And Mr. An taught him this in the judo dojo on Osan Air Base in 1960. Mr. An was Korean Army, drafted to teach hand-to-hand to American servicemen because the State Department wanted U.S. forces on the peninsula to have one ground skill in case of escalation. And Mr. An owed Chuck nothing. He drilled the sprawl 6 days a week for 6 months until the lead foot found the angle without thinking, and the chute crashes into nothing. Brennan's chin meets concrete. He pushes up off his hands, and Chuck does not press the advantage. Chuck steps back to neutral, 3 feet of space, and waits, because Chuck is not finishing. Chuck is teaching, and every man at the fence sees the choice, and every man at the fence understands in that half second what kind of man makes that choice. Second 7. Brennan stands, frustrated now. The right hand cocks at the hip, and Chuck reads the shoulder, the same read he taught a young man named Bruce Lee in the backyard in Bel Air in August of 1967, which is to watch the shoulder, not the fist, because the shoulder commits before the fist arrives, and Chuck pivots off the lead foot for the spinning hook kick. Not the back kick, the one he used in the movie. The hook. Huryo Chagi, and the instep of his right foot loops around the outside of Brennan's guard, which is the angle Brennan's vision cannot track, and catches the trapezius muscle 2 inches off the carotid sinus, 3/4 power, and the strike shuts down the right side of Brennan's body for 60 seconds by overwhelming the brachial plexus. Brennan does not fall. He goes to one knee on the concrete, conscious, eyes open. The right side of his face has lost its tone. He cannot speak for 15 seconds because the right side of his diaphragm is not responding to instructions, and the grinder is silent for 4 full seconds, and Captain Bailey, from the fence, does not move. Chuck waits 10 seconds on the concrete. Then he walks to Brennan. He offers his right hand, and Brennan looks at the hand. He looks at Chuck's face. He takes the hand. Chuck pulls him up. Brennan staggers half a step. Chuck steadies him with a hand on the elbow. The right side of Brennan's body is still asleep. He can stand on the right leg. He cannot lift the right arm. And Brennan does not speak for 30 seconds. And in those 30 seconds, the 26 men at the chain link fence are not moving and not talking. And Captain Bailey has stepped onto the grinder, and the heat on the concrete is rising off the painted trident in visible waves, and somewhere 400 yards south, the forklift is still moving cargo, and nobody on the grinder is hearing it. Because what is happening on the concrete right now is the kind of silence that men recognize when they are inside it. The specific silence in which one man is rewriting his understanding of his own profession in real time, and the other man is letting him do it without saying a word. And finally, Brennan says, "Sir, where do you learn to sprawl?" And Chuck says, "Osan Air Base, 1960. Mr. An was a Korean Army judo instructor. He owed me nothing. He taught me everything I know about being off my feet." And Brennan says, "Sir, that sprawl is not in our manual." And Chuck says, "I know, Senior Chief. I have read your manual." And Brennan files this. He nods once. And the 26 SEALs along the chain link fence do something the room does not expect them to do. They come to attention, not in unison, one at a time. The way SEALs acknowledge something they did not expect to acknowledge, and Captain Bailey walks onto the grinder. He picks up Brennan's blouse from the low wall. He hands it to Brennan. He says, "Senior Chief, get your arm back. Mr. Norris, would you join me for coffee in my office in 20 minutes? And he walks back to the BUD/S admin building. Brennan and Chuck walk back to the galley together. The walk is silent, and the galley is now mostly empty, because the lunch rush ended at 13:30, and it is 13:18. Chuck's tray is gone, stacked in dish return, and Brennan walks to the line, gets 2 coffees, brings them to table 8. He sits across from Chuck. The right arm is starting to come back. He can hold the coffee with both hands now, and Brennan says, "Sir, I would like to ask you one question, and I would like the honest answer." And Chuck says, "Go ahead, Senior Chief." And Brennan says, "Why did you not press the advantage on the sprawl?" And Chuck says, "Because you were not my enemy, Senior Chief. You were a man who needed to learn something I happened to know. The only difference between a teacher and an enemy is which one of those things you have decided you are." And Brennan files this too, and he does not answer for a long moment. And what is happening in that moment between the 2 men in that empty galley over 2 cooling cups of bad Navy coffee is the specific quality of silence between 2 men in which something durable is being built, which is the kind of silence that does not arrive often in a man's life and does not announce itself when it does, but which the men inside it always recognize, which is why they do not break it. They drink the coffee. They do not say anything else, and when Chuck stands up to leave, Brennan stands too, and they shake hands, and neither one says a word. 3 weeks later, Brennan submits a formal training improvement recommendation through the Naval Special Warfare Command Chain. 1 page. It proposes the addition of Tang Soo Do, sprawl and counter principles to the BUD/S, close quarters combat curriculum, citing the Huryochagi spinning hook kick as a previously undocumented finishing technique against a stalled close-quarters engagement. The recommendation is signed by Captain Larry Bailey, BUD/S Commanding Officer, and endorsed by Rear Admiral Irvy Charles Lemoyne, Commander Naval Special Warfare Group 1. It is approved in February of 1986, and the curriculum change runs in BUD/S classes 145 through 211. And most operators who deploy with the special mission units of the late 1980s learn the sprawl counter from a syllabus page that does not mention Chuck Norris's name. Brennan rotates out of BUD/S in December of 1985, 2 months after the grinder. He retires from the Navy in 1998 as a Master Chief. He never tells the story to a journalist. He tells it once, in 2003, to his son the night before his son begins BUD/S, Class 247. Captain Bailey retires in 1991. He references the incident in a single paragraph of an oral history interview with the Naval Institute Press in 2008. The interviewer asks him to elaborate. He declines, and the paragraph remains in the archive, 218 words long, marked restricted release, and the 26 SEALs disperse over the next 18 months. Coronado, Norfolk, Subic Bay, Little Creek, and each of them tells the story exactly once to the most junior man in his next platoon in the quiet hour after PT, and the story acquires details it did not originally have. In one version, Chuck broke Brennan's collarbone. In another, the fight lasted 30 seconds. In a third, Bailey called the fight off, and Chuck refused to stop. And none of those are true. The version that is true is the one in the Training Improvement Recommendation, declassified in 2019, available to anyone who knows to ask the Naval Special Warfare Command archive for the file. And the story is in SEAL Team 3's oral history, the day the Air Force took the grinder. Chuck Norris flew back to Dallas the next morning on a commercial flight, coach, seat 14C. He never told the story to a reporter in his 2004 memoir, Against All Odds, on a talk show, or in any of the more than 300 USO base visits he made over the next 4 decades. And when he was asked late in his life by a longtime student why he never told it, he said, because Darrell Brennan was a great instructor, and a great instructor's correction is not anyone else's story to tell. And that is the kind of man Chuck Norris was. He showed up in a rental sedan. He took off his cowboy boots. He answered a senior chief's question with one technique. He drank the cold coffee. He went home. And he never told the story. And that is the day 26 men on the BUD/S grinder learned what fighting actually looks like, and the day one Air Force veteran in tan BIDDU pants and a white T-shirt taught a Navy SEAL hand-to-hand combat instructor a lesson that the SEAL would carry alone for 41 years.